Thank you for my special guest panelists today for joining us on Boundless Brilliance first My STEM Journey panel. This is a series that we were kicking off just to have different women in STEM talk about their careers, their STEM background, or if it's STEM related education or anything of that sort. So I do want to introduce my panelists. We have Chelsea Schulz, Yvonne Ronquillo, and Shruti Koparkar. Thank you guys for joining us. Would love to have each of you take the time to tell us a little bit about yourself and probably the field of work that you currently are working in.
My name's Yvonne Patino Ronquillo, and I'm an educator, and I've been teaching with the Los Angeles Unified School District for 20 years now. I specialize mostly in kinder through third grade, teaching the foundations of reading, math, and science. I'm a mom of two boys, 11 and 7, and, mom life, work life, all that.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Schulz. My background has been in the math side of STEM and have always really enjoyed it. But I actually recently took a new role where I am in the science field. I work in marketing, so I can kind of hop around to any kind of industry right now. But I love the idea that my role is very math-based, but I am now in kind of the science realm in health. So I am very excited to be here and talk more. But yeah, that's who I am.
My name is Shruti Koparkar. I am an immigrant in the United States. I moved here about 15 years ago. I am an engineer by training. I worked as an engineer for the first 5-6 years of my career. And I now lead the product marketing team at Quantcast, which is a software technology company in the advertising space. Really happy to be here and excited.
Thank you guys for joining us. One of the things that interests me in talking about where we end up and where we end up is talking about our upbringing and did that do anything in our attitude towards STEM or expectations from our family or even gender expectations. Did our family think that girls should be involved in STEM or science? Or did you have that support early on? Could any of you share that portion of it, what you think your upbringing may have had in your choice of educational pursuits or career path?
I can jump in here because I think that mine was kind of unique in the sense that I was homeschooled throughout like the middle school ages. So when you're young and trying to navigate who's doing what and what like the social expectations are, I was really just around my family and our family friends. And when I was homeschooled, my parents quickly realized that I loved to read and I really had a knack for any sort of math. I have very vivid memories of me doing like math worksheets at the dinner table because I just liked the puzzle, I guess, of it. And that was something that I wouldn't say that my parents actively pushed me in that direction. They were just like, okay, this is something that you like. We're going to continue with this. My mom was always down to drive me to our local library and have me read whatever I wanted or get books on math and further that learning. But I never had kind of the social interaction of it from the peer side of it. So I find it very interesting knowing now the dynamic of when young students are learning in groups, whether or not women young girls flock to math and sciences or not. So I find it kind of interesting that I was isolated from that, but just going into high school, my teachers knew that I got good grades in math classes, and I was just kind of pushed in that direction from high school on up as sort of a career, and everything just kind of rolled on from there. But yeah, as a young kid, I definitely had the support from my parents. It was very casual. You just need kind of someone to point you in the right direction. And my parents were very happy to kind of open that path for me to go after whatever I was interested in.
Thanks for that share. And I really found that interesting in that maybe you were kind of isolated or from, the other social expectations in such a way that actually became a benefit. I'm always thinking about the research side of things at times. That might be a good comparative study. What is it like for girls who are homeschool versus those who are out in say a public school setting and the expectations for them around STEM? Does that look different? I mean, that's something worth exploring based on your story.
For me, I grew up, I went to elementary school all through the 80s. So that was, a time that STEM wasn't talked about really so much. But I know when I was little, I always liked to tinker with things. And that was like my big thing, is always just doing experiments. And I remember back in the 80s, my mom bought a set of encyclopedias. And with the encyclopedias came a kid's encyclopedia. There was like a little experiments book. And I would just pull out that book and run through all the different experiments or anything. And my parents were always really receptive to that. Like, when VCRs came in and all that kind of stuff, I was the one that, would set it up for them. So that was my role, my expectation. They knew that that's kind of what I enjoyed to do. And they were like, okay, she'll put it together. She'll read through the things. And they always kind of pushed me in that sense, and always being supported by them, even though we did have a very traditional kind of Latino background where I should fit in my role. But at the same time, my mom was always really, really pushed me in a sense to be able to do what I wanted.
No, I love that, because again, it comes around where there was no one discouraging you from exploring things. And they kind of like, she's good at it. Let her encourage you in a way that, that's your role. There's no thing, let your brother try that. They're just like, she's the one who's good at it, let her be. And that just really comes into a lot of times what we say about the STEM workforce, right? If a woman is good at something, you don't have to say that this should be something a man should be doing or a boy should be doing. It's whoever the best at it and who's bringing the skills that's needed for that job. And for your household, you were it.
For me, it was interesting. I have a younger brother. And I was an ideal student, the kind who will sit in the front row and answer all the questions. And it's the teacher's pet, that annoying person, unfortunately, was me. And my brother, who's now also an engineer, but he was, I think he was a smart kid. He just didn't want to study. And so he never got good grades, but he was always really good with mechanical stuff. Like, I just feel like he was just always good with like figuring appliances out. And I always felt like, I don't know, maybe this is not for me. I did well at all subjects, not just math and science. I was good at English and whatever else languages. So I just attributed my being good to the fact that I am studious and I am hardworking and my discipline. And then there was a competition at school where they had given us a problem statement and you had to invent something, like invent a device. And I won the second place, I think, or third or something, like, maybe even an honorable mention. I don't remember anymore, but it kind of cemented this idea in me that, oh, wow, I could do this. Maybe I could be an engineer. And my dad is an engineer by training. My mom has a degree in accounting. So they're both STEM professionals. So there was always that sort of a role model in front of me, but I was never forced into it. And I think a lot of it I came to the realization through the activities at school, seeing that I could do this too, kind of the support of the teachers. I'm really glad to see that we have a teacher on the panel. I feel like when I was growing up, teachers were my role. I wanted to be a teacher. All my cool people were my teachers, people who knew science and math. So I just really think that it's cool to have a teacher on this panel because they played a huge role in my STEM journey.
Who were your role models when you were younger? And then you have your STEM role models who were in your household as well. When your parents, did you want to talk more about how you looked upon your role models and the impact that they had on you?
I always knew that my parents put in a lot of hard work to get where they did. My mother in those days insisted on pursuing a master's degree without first being married off. And my dad came from a village where he grew up without electricity till he was in the 10th grade. And, he came to the city, he educated himself, like got an engineering degree. So I always had really good role models from that standpoint. From a STEM standpoint, though, I think they never forced me to take a certain path or the other. Eventually, I kind of realized that I'm good at it and they supported me. Like I said, I think for me, it was the school teachers. I really liked my math and science teachers. At one point, they used to be the same person even. And I just like, wow, if I could be like them and teach. Like I thought it was such a powerful job, and I still think it is such an impactful job. So yeah, I think those were definitely my role models.
I think mine is kind of similar to Shruti's, that teachers. Once I started going to public school, I was in public school from 8th to high school. The teachers that I met were fantastic, always supportive of me. And I just found a handful of them that were just like really motivating. Even in college, I had some amazing professors that took some time to talk to me about my career aspirations and being like, are you actually interested in this, or are you doing it just because you thought that this was your route? And really helping me learn what I wanted to be doing, what I should be doing. I kind of find it interesting because most of my role models throughout my career and in school were mostly men, because we had a lot of male teachers. We had, especially mathematics teachers, where I think all of my teachers were male. I had a female psychology teacher who I loved and adored, and she was definitely a role model for me. But I had a lot of male role models in my life that actually transitioned to a lot of male mentors throughout my career. So it's kind of interesting to me that I haven't had kind of that female to female connection, especially when I was in high school, where I think it would have been really helpful for me. It was just the role models that I looked up to and had kind of access to were men. And then a quick shout out, my grandma was a great role model, and she was an accountant that got her CPA and had her own accounting firm, never finished high school. And she just like worked so hard to build her own business, and such a role model. And I always think of her when I think of strong business person, just in general. So she's definitely one of them.
Thanks for that, sharing. Your grandmother sounds amazing. And then you just made me think about something. I had to do a quick, run through in my mind. After elementary school, all of my math teachers were also men. And there were some really great ones and others who just were kind of disconnected, and they could tell that they were not really pushing us girls forward. And we didn't even sit in the front, put it that way. But I never really had to stop to think about that until you mentioned the fact that, yes, all of my middle school and high school teachers who were math, all the way through calculus, were male. And wow. And that's funny because usually on the school campus, it seemed that you had more women teachers, but when it came to that particular subject, they were all men.
I come from a large family, both on my mom's side and my dad's side, and it's just heavily female. And just even thinking about my cousins, I'm one of 42 cousins, and I'm one of the youngest. So all my female cousins, even, Mexico here, they did pursue higher education. And even though they did fall into, family life, they still were able to do both. So I kind of always looked to them, even as a kid, being able to see them. Or even my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she was very involved in everything around our neighborhood, and always pushing and just strong and opinionated. So that's someone I definitely have as a role model. And then thinking about STEM role models, I didn't necessarily have someone, but I did go to an all-girls high school, and my math teachers were women. So I could see now how just in and of itself being in an all-girls high school is empowering. Just, we're all the leaders, we're in the front of the class. It doesn't matter. We assume every type of responsibility, and I love that. And that kind of has driven me forward through my whole life now. But just also seeing all the science and math. I think just one of my science teachers, my AP biology, must have been male, but mostly all female as well. Even pursuing them in college, and I would always try to seek out a female, where is that female professor, or where is that female? It doesn't matter where it was. I would always kind of be like, where can I kind of get any kind of hint of what life would be as, sciences as a female, just moving forward.
So my next question is, what about STEM pulled you guys in, right? At what age did you realize that you were actually interested in STEM? Because even as Shruti shared, you probably were good at a lot of subjects, right? Being studious and being that way. And you could do English, you could do anything. So what was it about STEM that made you say, I actually want to pursue this field and I'm actually good at it? When did you realize that you were actually good at it? A lot of the research shows that women who have pursued STEM had to realize first that they were good enough to do it, or they could just as smart as everyone else, and they can definitely feel confident that this is something they want to pursue. When did you have that light bulb or aha moment?
For me, it was probably around that time that I started participating in some of the science projects and school science or math competitions. There are also lots of competitive state competitions in India around math that my mom was like, oh, you're good at it. Do you want to do it? And like, okay. And I studied for it, and I was, I got good grades. Never something I was never like the top 10% or anything, but I did well. I felt confident. And so that's when I think I realized that, okay, I'm good at this. What pulled me into it is, I think, two things. I really like that math and science are so objective. There's nothing subjective about it. Like languages, it's like how do you define a well-written thing? And what is good and what is not, versus an equation is like 2 + 2 is 4. If that is what it is, then it's right. Otherwise, it's wrong. I like the objectivity personally a lot. It suited my personality. And then the other thing, of course, is curiosity in terms of like how things work, or, trying to figure out exactly why things are the way they are in nature, or any kind of man-made machines or appliances. Again, like I was never super good at it, but I was curious. And then when I kind of put some effort in, I got to the bottom of it. I was good at math than I was at science. I think I still am. So yeah, I think it was around that age, 10 or 12, that I really got pulled in.
Probably in high school as well. Also realizing that I was good in the sciences and math and pursuing that. And also knowing, when I was little, I would always be supported. The funniest thing is I went to UCLA as a pre-med, and I did graduate with a physiological science major. So I was on that path. It's not where I ended up now, but it was definitely that path. But I didn't really realize that I wanted that until probably maybe my sophomore or junior year in high school. And it was because I had a dream. It was so funny. I actually pictured in my dream was so vivid and so real. I was actually performing surgery. I woke up with this sense of like, wow, this was so amazing. I'm able to, it's kind of goes back to the curiosity. I'm able to actually open up something that very few people have ever seen before, and been able to, dissect or whatever it is that comes with that curiosity. And that was like a little spark in me. So it sounds so funny that it was like in a dream, but it was. I woke up with this renewed sense of like, yeah, I do have this love for science and math, and I love helping people. I wanted to use the fact that I was bilingual, like all these things kind of came together. Being a woman and not really seeing that many role models for myself, I wanted to also pursue something I could be a role model for people.
Yeah, I love that you had it, the dream part. Yeah. Wow. Chelsea, want to share when you had that epiphany, that light bulb moment?
Yeah, I think that mine was kind of like a slow progression kind of towards that direction. Like it was stuff that I enjoyed. Math specifically was something that I really enjoyed as a young kid. And then once I went into high school, I actually had quite a few teachers try and push me in that direction. And I actually thought that I was going to be a experimental psychologist. That was like my idea. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I find this so interesting. I want to look into this and write research papers my whole life. But I loved the statistics part of it that comes with the research. And I thought that I was good at it, but I didn't think that I was like that great at it. And I think a lot of us always fight with the imposter syndrome of when you put yourself in a group, like, am I actually supposed to be here? And when I was in high school, I remember sitting down with one of my professors that he was like, look, you are really smart. He's like, I know a ton of students that are incredibly smart, incredibly talented. And he's like, but you put your mind and dedicate yourself to what you want to do. And he was like, you're very motivated. And he's like, regardless of if you don't know what's going on, you'll figure it out because you're that motivated. So he's like, don't worry about it. You can do this. You can be in a math career. And that was the light bulb moment for me. That was like, okay, I guess I can figure it out. But before then, it was just kind of okay, do I fit here? Am I going to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or just doing any sort of research? And then that was what I really, really thought until someone was like, you're really, really good at this. Have you thought about this? And I was like, yeah, I've thought about that. I just didn't know that I could actually do that. So I guess now I'll do that. And then that just pivoted for me.
That's great. Can you guys provide some tips of how you sought out and build relationships with mentors? A lot of people just don't know how to do it. It's like they want a mentor, but how do you start that? Is it a whole cold card calling thing, or you send an email, or do you really need to get personal?
I was always seeking a mentor. Like that was my biggest thing, especially I went to a college that was known for weeding out people. I'd get in the underdivision class with 500 students. How do you stand out, or what is it about you that can stand out? And kind of my STEM journey takes me, like thinking back now, is how much I did try to look for a mentor and I never got one. So I think because of that, I never fulfilled what I, had started to accomplish. So I'm kind of like the story of, I wanted a mentor. I was trying to actively seek one out. I was pursuing it so much that I would look on campus for organizations. And one organization was called Latinas Guiding Latinas. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so there. And then I show up and it was like, oh no, I'm the mentor. I'm the Latina that's supposed
to go to the schools.
Like, oh, well, I can do that too. But I just never was able to find that source for me. Because of that, I slowly started to doubt myself. I didn't have that one person telling me like, you can stand out in that group of 500, or it's okay that you didn't do so well in this course. Maybe take this course. And I did a lot on my own. And I think I kind of fell short of finalizing what I wanted to pursue, which would have been medicine. I think that was one of the key factors.
Yeah, the mentorship thing is very difficult. And I always find, even when I feel like I'm so busy with so much going on, if I do have one person reach out to me, which happened to me this week, she just happened to be at a training that I did, and she saw, one of my master's degree, and she's like, oh, I want to pursue that degree, and sent me the longest email with very specific questions. And I was like, a Monday morning, I open up your email and see that. But I was like, yeah, I wish someone would have taken some more time with me too. So I went line by line. I told her, this is actually my contact number if you want to actually have a chat instead of, the email response. Because you're right. I mean, mentors could probably make or break or not having that help in navigating, especially for people who probably come from families where we weren't taught how to seek out mentors. I was also went to this cultural training is talking about how some people are used to seeking that out because that's part of that, cultural, part of it. And others were like, we come for you, do it yourself and get it done. And, so we don't know how to knock on someone's door and say, can you help me? And, can you, and it's really just consulting, just really telling me what worked for you, or should I go this way? This person was asking me to pick her degree program. I was like, no, that's not how you do it. You need to figure out what you really are interested in. No one's going to pick that for you at your master's level. Like what, so there's so much involved in that. Yeah, Shruti or Chelsea, do you want to tell us about your experiences with mentors, or how, if you were able to actually, obtain some along your journey?
I think mentors is kind of an interesting situation, having a mentor and trying to find one, because I was kind of in the same boat where I was like constantly looking for a mentor. I was like, look, I need to have a mentor. I need to have someone who's going to like help me with these conversations. There was this like one time that I don't even know what I was doing, but I had another like light bulb moment where I stopped for a second. I was like, I have a ton of mentors. None of them are formal. So there were so many people throughout my life that I just didn't really consider a formal mentorship, because we weren't sitting down for coffee with notebooks in front of us saying like, this is what you should do next, or these are the ideas, and here are the 10 questions I have for you. These were people that like helped me throughout my journey of just like listening to my concerns, talking me through of like, oh, are you actually interested in that? And just kind of like casual friendships and coworkers. So it kind of, for me, at least personally, opened up the idea of what a mentor is. My current boss, who I've worked with in the past, is a huge mentor to me, but I also consider her a friend, where she knows exactly what my motivations are. I've had those conversations with her, and she's really interested in having me succeed. And obviously, because we work together, she wants me to succeed just as much as I want her to succeed. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a more casual friendship instead of what I was thinking of as what a mentor is. So I kind of opened up the idea of what a mentor is for me, and it helped me get advice from people of all different walks of life. I actually found a program with my old college where they were actually looking for mentors who were younger to mentor current students. And I've actually found that very helpful for me to just have the insight of like, what are students thinking about when they're like going into the workforce, and just like making sure that I guess like my knowledge is like fresh and up to date. So just as much as I'm like mentoring them and helping them learn getting into the workforce and what they should be driving, they're helping me remember what my passions are and what direction I should be going. My whole thing is like, if you can't find a mentor, like maybe think about the idea of like, do you have a lot of friends or someone that you consider a friend or an acquaintance that you look up to? That person might be a good mentor for you just in casual conversation, but you could also look into being a mentor and seeing if that helps.
Great advice. Thank you. Shruti, do you want to tell us a little bit about mentorship and your experiences with it?
When I think of mentorship, I think of my life as two different phases. While I was a student, so not yet working, I did not have any formal mentors, neither do I remember wanting to seek any. Now that I think back on it, I echo what Chelsea just said, which is throughout my education, I was seeking out advice. Like I was talking to people a couple of years ahead of me saying, hey, you took up engineering. Do you like it? What is it like? Can you tell me a little bit more? So before I took it up, I talked to people and said, okay, I want to major in electronics, but what is this other thing, mechanical thing about? And so I think going back to that experience, I 100% echo what Chelsea said, which is it's great if you can find a mentor early on, but early on, like you don't even quite yet know which way you're going to go. And it actually maybe even helps to have many different influences. What helps, like in terms of tips of like leveraging this as much as possible, is just be curious, before you make decisions and before you jump into things. It is okay to pause and say, okay, I'm going to research this a little bit, talk to a few people, go online, think about it. I think the definition of mentors is really so different. Like she said, so many good things, like internet, right? Like you could find a lot of content there written by some really amazing thought leaders. And a piece that you read could touch your heart and it could inspire you. So what mentor means has certainly changed in today's age. And then the second half of my career or my life, I guess, is when I have been working. And strangely, even during that time, I have never had any formal mentors. There was only a short period of time during which I was desperately looking for one and did not find the right kind of mentor. And I eventually found my way out some other way. But I really, truly wish that I had a mentor then, because there are certain changes in my career that I made that are now make me much happier and more productive that would have come about sooner had I had that mentorship in place. The one thing, however, my informal mentors, I've learned from them is the one tip I will say is, it's great to have a mentor. It's great to seek one. It's always important to show up with the mentee mindset, regardless of whether or not you have a mentor. So you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to show up with dedication. You have to be curious. You have to ask questions. You have to do your homework, because you don't get good mentors if you come and ask them basic questions that you could have like got information about somewhere else on the internet or with your friends. It's really important to like develop that mentee mindset. And once you do, people will take interest in you. Like a lot of my mentors have taken interest in me because I showed up with that mentee mindset. I said, hey, I want to learn. You're really good at this. Can you teach me? And it can really be a friend too. And it has in many cases for me. So I love what everyone said about mentorship.
Yeah, and I love that mentee mindset. I have this saying at times. I even use it with one of my assistants. Is that Google is your friend? Because you're right. There's people who really want to spend time with you, but we're in a new era. There's so much information that's available at the click of your finger. So if you are going to take up somebody's time to educate you or guide you or even give you a tip, make sure it's not something that you can easily find with one click. If you want a more in-depth discussion about it, great. People are going to be willing to do that. But sometimes Google could be your friend. It's kind of like, back in the day when we had a Britannica encyclopedia in my house. I'm an 80s baby. Came in. So I was like, my mother bought that for a reason. It was pretty much to don't ask me what you can look up. And even if I asked her what that word meant, she would tell me what a dictionary was. So, that taught me to make sure if I go to someone with a question, make sure it's not something that I could have figured out on my own. It better be something that needed that, additional input, or something I couldn't figure out even after my attempt of reading it myself. But yeah, I was given those things really early on. They were like a set out, in the living room. Don't ask her a question that could be found in those books over there that she paid all this money for.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like, it's not only about not wasting your mentor's time, but it also just shows them that you're going to show up with your 100% effort, and it makes them more interested in investing in you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the mentor conversations that have been the best for me are like very geared towards what I'm interested in, what I'm good at, like how do I make those next steps? And to me, having someone to brainstorm with that like knows who you are and will help you kind of like clear out some of that fog to help guide you in the right path, most of the time is going to be a friend, someone who knows you more personally and cares about you personally, instead of like this professional C-level executive that's going to tell you, his exact route or her exact route to get to that role. Like having a friend mentor, I guess, will help clear that fog to have you find your own path that's, I guess, happier for you, more efficient for you. So that's where I found positivity and mentorship. It can really be anywhere, regardless of where you look. You can find mentorship as long as you take that idea of being constantly in learning mode. I like that.
Well, I wanted to talk about a little bit more about these journeys and what we're learning from talking to you. And what you just pointed out, Chelsea, is that every journey is unique, right? So if you go to the C-level executive, that was that person's journey. That you cannot follow every step that they have revealed to you, because that's probably what worked for them. You don't know their situation versus your own. So when you guys began pursuing your field of study in STEM, when you started saying, I'm going to select this major, did you expect to be working in your current field or role that is currently? And I know that for this panel, I think that the answer is definitely going to be probably not. What I do love about this panel is that everyone is actually in something different than what they initially started out doing. And I really don't think a lot of people realize that that's the story for many of us. I can think about many of my colleagues and friends and what their actual degree and major and study is. I have someone who should actually be, practicing as a clinician, as a psychologist, but she feels better as a risk management position. And I was like, how did you get over there? Like, you have all this clinical background, and you're supposed to be doing therapy, and you're doing risk management for hospitals. Our journeys are all unique, and they're not straight lines. So could you talk about your trajectory? How did you get from, where you were and where you were like, I had that epiphany, and this is what I thought I was going to be doing, to where I am now? And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with where I'm working, where I'm happy now. So if that's even a part of that, if you want to discuss, we get to change our minds, right? When it comes to our careers.
Yeah, I opted for engineering. I loved it. It was all about math and science, very objective. I even pursued graduate studies in it. And then I worked as an engineer, a software engineer, doing electrical and computer engineering for the first 5 or so years of my career. While I enjoyed it, I was good at it, I was making decent money, everything was great, except I realized that there is half of my brain, and I don't want to get into the right brain, left brain thing necessarily, but I realized like half of my skills are somehow not being used. Like I thought I was good at language, and I was good at languages, and I thought I was good at communication. I thought I had a lot of creativity. Not that, by the way, there is no creativity in engineering. There's a lot of creativity in engineering. It's just slightly different kind. And I was very good with people. I loved interacting with people. And as part of my job as an engineer, I didn't get to exercise a lot of those skill sets. There was a point, and that was exactly the point that I said that I wish I had a mentor, because I felt so lost. I was like, this is what I decided to do. I'm even good at it. I'm even making probably very good money, but I'm not happy. And what is wrong with me? Like I think I was even depressed for 6 months or so. And what I did was I sought a career counselor. And I knew that, maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe it'll just be wasted money, but it'll be at least something. It gives you like this hope that you're doing something about this hopeless feeling you're having. And so I did that. Honestly, nothing came of it, but it took me out of the rut that I was in. And then I was back to like being an engineer for a while, another year or two. And then eventually I just decided, okay, I'm just going to take the plunge. And I made the shift to product marketing. It was a really nice transition because product marketing is all about talking to engineers, taking what they're building. So talking to these really technical minded scientific people, taking what they're building, and then being able to communicate that to the world, to the customers who may not be as technical. And I thought that I sat at that boundary really well. By the way, it took some iterations. I didn't directly jump into product marketing. It took some zigzagging to finally get to where I am. But today I am very, very happy. And the way that my engineering background helps is because, well, so many ways. Like first, everyone thinks I'm super credible. Everyone in half my organization is engineers. And when they talk to me, they're like, no, she has an engineering degree. And it's not just the degree, but it shows probably, right? Because I do know what they're talking about, having been one. So it helps in that way. It also helps, not in my current job, but my earlier job, I worked for a much smaller startup. And in a startup, you have to wear many hats. You have to do many things. And even though my role didn't call for it, I got my hands dirty. I took up coding and I built out a small project that we needed for an industry fair. And these are the kind of things that got noticed because, our leaders were like, oh, she's awesome. Like she can handle this as well. So you don't know how your STEM background will come in handy. It is also okay to pursue a particular STEM degree and then feel like, okay, this was fun, but now I want to go do that. That's okay. Like you said, Cherise, like we are allowed to change our minds. And I also like that. The one good thing that career counselor did that I really want to share is he said, Shruti, because I had asked him, what's wrong with me? Everything is great. Why am I wanting to change? Like, why? And he's like, well, why are you beating yourself up over it? He told me, your parents, like that generation, stuck with their same job for 20, 25, 40 years. That was the era they lived in. Your generation, I am telling you, I'm seeing it happen, will change careers at least 3 or 4 times in their lives. And ever since he said that, it's just like given me permission. Like, 2 years from now, if I decide product marketing is not it and I want to do something else, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm just going to go do that other thing. And use my solid foundation, STEM foundation, to pursue whatever it might be. Chelsea talked about psychology. At one point, I was like, maybe I like people so much. Maybe I should pursue psychology. And it's kind of interesting because actually marketing is a lot about psychology. It's about understanding what resonates with people. So yeah, I mean, a strong foundation always helps, and you are allowed to change your mind.
I love that. Yeah, a lot of that really resonated with me because when I started in college, I got my bachelor's degree in actuarial science and risk management and insurance. And I worked straight out of college as an actuary, as an underwriter. Like I was working in a private health insurance industry at a company in Wisconsin, and I hated it. And there were numerous times, and I'll be very honest here, that like I came home crying because just in general, our health insurance, industry is so flawed. And knowing the background of like how much people were being charged and actually being the one setting rates and informing those decisions was like way too much for me to mentally handle. So I had what I call my quarter life crisis and had no idea what I was going to do, wound up quitting my job. And I remember like sitting at the kitchen table again with my mom where all my epiphanies happen. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I just decided to move to New York City. So I packed up all my bags, moved to New York, and I walked around New York for about 2 weeks, talking to every job that I could. I don't know why I didn't get a job at Starbucks. They like wouldn't hire me for whatever reason. But I did get a job at a marketing agency, and it was just out of a whim that they were like, look, you have a strong math background. What do you think about being an analyst for our company? You could probably catch on really quickly. What do you think? And I was like, that sounds fantastic. Let's try it. From there, that company gave me a little bit of leeway to test out things, like talk to other executives to see if I was interested in actually like being a marketing manager and getting that experience. But I was really the analyst for them. And I did that for a few years and then took another plunge and moved to Los Angeles. And found a job where someone again was going to give me the opportunity to actually make the decisions in marketing. And because I had a few years of like just knowing the numbers, but not having any ownership over changing it, which was very problematic for me. I wanted to like own the whole thing. So then I wound up becoming a marketing manager. And from there, I just grew my career to where I am now as marketing director with a small team of managers that actually do the work. And I love it so much. I've been so happy with it. I think marketing is a fantastic career, but no one ever told me that marketing is so mathematics based. And especially like growing up with kind of like the uprising of the internet, I don't think that I had anyone to tell me that like, hey, this is going to be a great opportunity for you once you get out of college. So I just kind of had to figure it out throughout my career. But it all started with me hating my first job out of college and realizing like, oh my gosh, I went to college for something that I wound up hating. Is this my whole college degree down the line? Like, did I just waste all of this money? And kind of to what Shruti was saying is like, no, you can pivot. And having like a STEM degree, I think was one of the things that actually really helped me. Was people were like, okay, she really knows her stuff. We trust her because she actually has this degree, so she could probably do this, was kind of what led me into these other jobs and helped me to pivot. But yes, you have every right to pivot and try something new. If you hate your job, quit. You can completely pivot overnight. And I think so many of us do that.
Well, thinking about my journey, just exiting my last few years of college, my family and I ran into some financial hardship, which took me out of college for over half a year. And because of that, I kind of dove into the workforce, just doing different things that I could help my parents out with. Like I worked at Bank of America and AT&T, like all these big name kind of companies. And that kind of showed me like a path of, oh, these are all the things that I don't want to do. I definitely want to go as much as I can, go back to college, finish this out and continue my degree. So I was able to return the following year. I finished out my degree. And then again, just didn't have the finances to be able to apply right away to medical school. So I decided that I could take a year off and study a little bit more for the MCAT and save some money for all my applications. And in that, I kind of again dove into the workforce. I started temping and once again saw all the jobs that I didn't want to have. But then someone kind of just told me, oh, well, you could become a substitute teacher and you work the days that you want to, and you can study the days that you're not working. I was like, oh, definitely. So I go into, the offices and I show them my degree and they're like, which class do you want to teach? There's chemistry, math, here you go. You're exactly what we want here. And I was like, oh, I never really thought this was just be like here, but I ended up deciding at that moment, they're like, well, you don't need to sub, you can go straight into a classroom. I didn't really think about it. I just kind of went with it in the moment. And I decided not to go into high school to do like math or science because I didn't have the background to lesson plan or to develop these lessons. So I really felt a little bit, it was just going to be a disservice at the beginning, not being able to do that for the students. But I did go and observe an elementary school classroom, and I kind of just fell in love with all of it. Looking at it now, I really bring a lot of my research, my science mentality into a primary classroom because I'm teaching reading. So reading is not, innate. It is something that's taught. So I kind of assess every student. I take I get the data, and I set up a plan as if I kind of even think like, well, if I would have been a doctor, these would all be my patients. I would do some research on, set up a course of action, kind of take it a lot of data driven. And because of that, I love being able to teach that foundation of reading, bringing in everything that I know about research. And then now, without even realizing it, I bring so much of my love for math and science that when, parents refer to me as like, oh, I really want my student in that class because she does science, or, she really loves math. Or even at parent conferences now, I get parents that say, oh, well, my daughter, she loves science. And I'm like, well, I'm like, I think I know why. So I really love now fostering that. And I didn't realize that everything that I kind of wanted to build into what my STEM career was going to be, I kind of just transferred it over. My wanting to be able to work with my community, be able to use the fact that I'm bilingual, all that kind of just my wanting to help people, I just transferred it straight over to teaching. And I love it too.
Getting to hear your individual stories, it's inspiring, it's motivating. It has me even thinking about what mine was like in so many ways. And I saw some similar elements. And that's what I love. We can always find something that we can relate on while our journey is still being quite unique. And I love that we ended it off talking about what you do, Yvonne. This is what we do at Boundless Brilliance. We're really trying to go into the classrooms that you're in, working directly with young people. And this is the first My STEM Journey panel. And it's just interesting that all of you are somehow connected to Boundless Brilliance as well. So if you won't mind sharing your connection to Boundless Brilliance and what made you decide to even get involved with the organization?
Well, I have had Boundless Brilliance come into my classroom. So I've had the experience of having the wonderful women in our classroom and showing the kids their STEM activities and just breaking down boundaries. And I love that. I really do. I loved it from the beginning. And it being from the little kids who sometimes get left out. Sometimes they're like, oh, they're too little. Science is not for them. Keep it for 4th, 5th, or 6th graders, as opposed to really just flipping that mentality and knowing that they have to see these mentors, they have to see these faces, these activities from when they were really little. And I'm so happy to see that the move that Boundless Brilliance, has now brought into the elementary schools.
Well, thank you. And I did also want to point out that you are a member of our advisory council. Yes. As well. There's a wealth of information there that we definitely rely on you to share with us when it comes to, are we doing the right things by the young people in the elementary schools that we come across?
I'm a board member here at Boundless Brilliance, but I came across them when I was looking for volunteer things, and I knew that I wanted to support a company, a nonprofit that really aligned with my goals, my motivation, like my personal ideas. I wanted to be part of something that I was really fond of. And as I was reading more and more about Boundless Brilliance, I was like, I agree with everything about this. Like, I think that, coming from just being in the workforce and not seeing a lot of younger women with STEM backgrounds, like I can see that in the resumes that I get across the table. And obviously not everyone goes into marketing fields, but at the same time, I'm like, there's definitely something going on there that maybe people aren't going into STEM or something. But I was like, I had such a great pull towards STEM, and I just really wanted to kind of like bring that to younger people as well. So like whenever I read everything about Boundless Brilliance, I was like, yep, check. Okay, yep, I'm here. I'm going to support this. I was so excited. And the team and their goals and motivation is just wonderful. So I can't wait to see this company like continue to grow. And I'm just so excited and so honored to be a part of it.
I think very, very similar story for me as well. I've always been encouraged to do my bit to give back to society, and education, STEM in particular, yes, but education in general has always been a cause I've been very, very supportive of and interested in. I lived in Austin for 8 years, and I used to volunteer as a math tutor in schools and as a coach to coach high school students to think about college and things like that. And when I moved to LA, I have been looking for volunteer opportunities. And when this popped up, it was just the right fit. It was really aligned with that education theme, but it was also just aligned with my passion, which is STEM. It's surprising, actually, that there are many more, to my knowledge, or at least from what I saw, women engineers in India even than I thought are here, which was to me very surprising just because we think of United States as a developed country and India as a developing country. And so that sort of juxtaposition, I was like, okay, I live here now, I'm a citizen here, and I want to do my bit for the people here. So it made sense to join Boundless Brilliance. What I really like, in addition to so many other things about Boundless Brilliance, is this dual empowerment which we have going. We have volunteers who are, young adults who are going into these schools, and they are the role models for these younger children. And in that exchange, they are both benefiting. Obviously, the younger children get to see all the cool math and science stuff, interact, have fun with it, learn about it. And our volunteers, get to see what they can be. They can be the leaders of tomorrow. They are the leaders of tomorrow. I just think it's so powerful. It's one of the special things about Boundless Brilliance. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here. I joined as part of the board of directors team about a month ago. Not quite that long ago, but happy to be here.
Happy to have you all here and working with Boundless Brilliance in the different capacities that you do. And thank you so much for being part of this first kickoff of My STEM Journey panel.
Thank you, Cherise. You're awesome.
Thank you